People clown the things you love, but you know what? They've got nothing that makes them feel alive. Before you hear what I have to say about loving your passions, please comment passion, thing, or fandom, or something that you love that is not very popular. Alright, no judgment. I won't judge if you don't judge, okay? But I gotta say this. Somewhere along the line, the world got scared to care about each other. Maybe it's social media, obviously cancel culture, our peers' opinions, yada yada yada. People are just afraid of sharing their opinions or things that they love, and in the end, we end up censoring ourselves, right? We all turn into NPCs, and there's nothing to us, no layers. Hey, what do you love? I like reading. I like sports. I like to look at the wall. Yeah, but what specifically? Why do you like looking at the wall? What sport do you love? What teams do you love? These are things that we've kind of lost sight of. We're just everyone's just ashamed of what they love, and myself included. There's lots of things that I'm like, I love this thing, man. I spent so much time on it. But do I tell people? No, not really. Because everything has a stereotype, right? There's tropes, stereotypes, a lot of hate about specific things, and that's what stops us. Wrestling is one thing, right? People, as soon as you say wrestling, people say it's fake, scripted, right? Anime, it's just cartoons. Gaming, right? As soon as you tell somebody you're a gamer, they immediately think you're a basement dweller and you don't touch grass, right? But obviously you are, because you're talking to them face to face. Reading, fantasy books, and people are just like, grow up, read some non-fiction books, self-help books, something. But let's be real. All those things, the weird things that people love, there's other people who love those things also, right? There's communities, fandoms, fan art, forums, friendships, culture. All these things involve, these, I guess, hated. I don't even want to say hated. These these things that people think are weird. Is that more eloquent? Does that make sense? And all that hate, stereotypes, we let that get to us. We love these things for a good reason, one way or another, right? Maybe it's something that we remembered from being a kid and doing something with our parents, or maybe it's something that really brought you happiness in a dark time in your life. Nostalgia also plays a factor in a lot of things, but either way, the things that we love in one way or another is kind of an escape, right? If you love something so much, you start doing it, the time fades away, right? Gaming's a good example. People love playing certain games. Next thing you know, 3 hours have passed by and you forgot to eat. All right. Now there's a fine line between loving something and being addicted to something, but we're talking about loving. All right. And when you're doing the thing that you love, you feel alive, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So I'm gonna hit you with the story. So I was at my last job for about 4 years, right? And in this job, all we did was, it was kind of like what is the word? Oh man.
A few moments later.
It was food service, but not really. I was a barista for 4 years basically. And on top of making coffee and things like that, I got to know a lot of people. I am the type of person that I just like talking to people. I like getting to know people, right? I don't like surface level things, surface level relationships with people. I feel like I can see through that. Except when I don't want to have a conversation with someone, I'm gonna keep it surface level. All right, it's probably hypocritical of me, but that's another conversation. But anyways, I was at this place for 4 years, and I was comfortable. After a couple of years, I was promoted, and eventually I was running, my own shop. And because I was there for so long, and because I was, in charge of all these people, they loved and respected me, at least I hope. They loved and respected me so much that I felt comfortable sharing, my opinions, good, bad, my hobbies, my family. They felt like family to me. So my wife and kids, they were always a topic of conversation because it felt like I was talking with more family with these guys. But I recently, beginning of the year, I left that place and started a new job. Was ready for something new. And I'm gonna paint a picture here. So imagine, being in a place that's loud, social, music, lots of caffeine, and going to a place where I'm sitting in an office in front of a desk. The desk goes up and down though, that's kind of cool. But I'm sitting in front of a computer now, talking to nobody besides the people that are in the same room as me. And so I start working there, and at the end of the first week, they tell me they want to have, a company lunch, right? Everyone gets to sit in the room with me and, ask me questions, gets to know me. Nothing crazy, right? This is pretty normal in a lot of places. It was nice to be over food, right? I chose burgers because I got to choose and I like burgers. But this is a place where, like I said, office job and working 8 to 5. And so I have a lot of people that are twice my age that work there. There's maybe like 2 people that are younger than me, right? And I'm 29, so twice my age. They're they're getting up there. And so with that, I think of I hate saying boomers, but boomers. a lot of boomers, or just older people in general, are closed-minded, right? Which I don't blame them, right? They've done something their whole life, they've heard something their whole life, and to have them change their mind about something is really hard. So, closed-mindedness. And they ask me, hey, what do you like to do in your free time? And obviously I give them the simple answers. I watch TV, sports, I like sports, hang out with the family, things like that. And in my head, I'm like, man, I feel so vanilla. I feel so boring. And so in a split second, I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell them something that I really love. I love wrestling. And immediately, as soon as I thought that, I was like, all right, I'm going to say wrestling. But I had to tell myself, I already know what the first thing someone is going to say is. And so, actually, I love wrestling, WWE, all these things, professional wrestling. And the first thing that literally the owner of the company, the oldest guy in there, says, oh, that shit's fake. And I'm like, obviously it's the boss, so I can't talk crap to him, right? And so I go, the pain is real, the drama's fake, right? And so that's really how I feel, right? Wrestling is all the moves and all the things you see with, besides certain things here and there are real physically, but all the drama is fake, obviously, right? For example, The Undertaker, we know he's not really dead, but he's called the Dead Man. That was his shtick. That's what he did. And we all knew it was not real. But when he went in there and chokeslammed someone, that was real. You could hear that person break their back on the mat. Anyways, wrestling for another time. And so, they kept asking me questions, or not questions, they kept, saying these silly stereotypes and stuff like that. And then another older person goes, oh yeah, I used to watch that as a kid. And then immediately that made me feel so much better. I'm just like, hell yeah. Because everybody knows wrestling in some fashion or another, right? Hulk Hogan, The Rock, John Cena, whatever. And so she goes on to tell about how she watched the show, and then another person said, oh yeah, me too, actually. And so it made me feel so much better. Obviously, all that negative energy, I'm not going to let it affect me because I still love it, but it made me feel so much better. And it also made me think, I dare you, one of you guys, to tell me something that you love, and I'm going to pick it apart, but it's okay. I won't do that. Anyways, like I said earlier, it's these things that we are passionate about or love, or things that are tied to, our experiences, our specific times in life, our family members that we love, friends. That's how I feel about wrestling. I all started, as a kid. My grandparents watched so much wrestling, and so I just fell in love with it there. And so whenever I watch wrestling, I, bless their soul. They're not living with us anymore, or they're not here on earth anymore, but I just always think of them. And so it means something to me, right? And that can mean anything, or anything can mean that to anybody else, right? Another hobby. But that's the thing that people just forget about, is these hobbies or interests are just not useless, right? It brings people together, right? Because I love wrestling, I've met people that I would never expect to love wrestling. I convinced my wife to give it a try, and she did after almost 7 years of being together. She finally gave it a try, and guess what? She's crazy for wrestling now. And, I've made lifelong friends just through wrestling alone. And that's something that I'll always love, But, so in summary, it's a little inventory check, right? Press tab, press I, whatever you got bound to your inventory, usually in games. Just embrace it, man. Just embrace what you love. Some people might think it's cringy, I don't care. Wear the shirt. I wear my wrestling shirts. Nobody knows what it is, and that's the best part. People don't even know what you love is a thing until you tell them, right? So I wear tons of wrestling shirts. Nobody has ever said a thing to me, except the people who also love it. So I just want you guys to think, what's the thing that you are keeping secret? What's a hobby that you're not expressing? Obviously, you don't need to shout it from the rooftops, because then you're just drawing attention to yourself. And if you're not that type of person, that's just going to make things worse. But life's too short. Don't pretend to not care about the things that you love. Those things make you happy. It's a side quest to always be who you are while you're going through life. And these little hobbies or interests just might be something that makes your life easier, So if people still don't get it, just drop kick them, man, and walk away. Keep loving the thing. It's the most real you can be. And at the end of the day, all people can ask for is for you to be your real, authentic self. So don't downplay your passions just to appease or please those around you. Don't shrink your joy to make someone else feel comfortable. Life isn't about collecting approval, all right? It's about putting your stamp on things and letting it ride out. So love what you love it loudly, be authentic, even if it's weird, okay? Nothing illegal, though. If you love something illegal, that's bad. Find something else. But take these little patch notes, apply it to your lives, and someone's got a problem with it, hit them with the steel chair, okay? Steel chair of self-love. Excuse me, gotta clarify. And just keep it pushing. But, ready? Here's my little impression of The Rock.
And finally, you've embraced what makes you you. And that's the bottom line.
So, here's a little save point. Subscribe and catch y'all later.